Have you ever felt like an ATM for the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? I was 31 with a thriving career, yet my bank account was a ghost town. For 7 years, I was my family's financial lifeline, sending thousands of dollars every single month. Then one cold text message blew my entire world apart, but it also set me free. My name is Kristen, and at 31, I never expected my successful accounting career would become a curse. For 7 years, I supported my family financially through their supposed hardships. Every month, thousands of dollars transferred from my account to theirs. Then came that cold text message. We need space from you. Please do not reach out anymore at all. My heart shattered into a million pieces. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever felt used by the people who should love you most. I graduated from college with an accounting degree and student loan debt that felt like a mountain on my shoulders. Still, I was proud, the first in my family to get a bachelor's degree. I landed an entry-level position at a small accounting firm in Portland. The starting salary was modest, but it was mine, earned through years of late-night studying and weekend jobs throughout college. Back then, my relationship with my family was what most would call normal, maybe even close. My mom, Elaine, worked as a receptionist at a dental office. My dad, Thomas, had a steady job as a warehouse manager for a furniture company. My younger sister, Haley, was still in high school, dreaming about becoming a nurse someday. And then there was my uncle Larry, my dad's brother, who had always been my biggest cheerleader. He never missed a graduation, piano recital, or important moment in my life. We gathered for Sunday dinners whenever possible, sharing stories and laughter around the dining table that had been in our family for generations. Those were simple times, happy times before I became the family bank. 7 years ago, everything changed. I was just settling into my apartment, enjoying the independence that came with my first real paycheck when my phone rang. It was Mom, her voice shaking with tears. "Kristen, honey, I hate to ask this of you, but we are in serious trouble," she said between sobs. "Your father lost his job. The company is downsizing, and the timing could not be worse." She explained that she had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, forcing her to reduce her working hours. Their savings were depleted after paying for her medical tests. The rent was due in 3 days and they were $800 short. "We have nowhere else to turn," Mom whispered. "It is just until your father finds another job. We will pay you back as soon as we can." Without hesitation, I transferred the money. $800 was a significant chunk of my monthly budget, but they were family. Of course I would help. Dad would find another job soon, and this would be a one-time thing. But it was not. 2 weeks later, they needed help with the utility bills. Then it was groceries, then car insurance. Each request came with a heartfelt explanation and a promise of repayment as soon as things turned around. Each time I said yes. What started as a temporary loan transformed into a monthly commitment. Dad would land interviews but never the job. Mom's condition worsened, limiting her ability to work, even part-time. Haley needed money for school supplies, then college application fees, then textbooks when she started community college. 3 months into this arrangement, I set up direct deposits. It seemed more efficient than responding to panic calls every few weeks. $500 on the first of the month, another $500 on the 15th. Strained my budget, but I made it work. I took on extra projects at the firm, worked weekends, and eventually earned a promotion. More money meant more I could give to my struggling family. Meanwhile, my own dreams took a back seat. The down payment fund for my first home grew at a snail's pace. The trip to Europe I had planned since college was indefinitely postponed. My retirement contributions remained at the minimum required for the employer match, far below what my financial advisor recommended. Family comes first, I told myself whenever I felt a twinge of resentment. They would do the same for me. As months turned into years, the direct deposits increased along with my salary. By year 3, I was sending them $2,000 monthly, covering not just necessities, but also helping with Haley's tuition and unexpected expenses that always seemed to arise. I created spreadsheets to track my contributions initially, planning to ensure they could pay me back someday. Eventually, I stopped updating them. Deep down, I knew I would never see that money again, and acknowledging that truth hurt too much. The gratitude from my family was effusive at first. Mom would call me in tears, blessing me for being such a wonderful daughter. Dad promised he would make it up to me once he got back on his feet. Haley would send handwritten thank you cards with drawings inside. Uncle Larry was the only one who seemed concerned about the arrangement. "Are you sure you can afford this, Kristen?" he asked during one of our coffee meetups. "It seems like you are carrying the entire family on your shoulders." "It is temporary," I assured him, though by then it had already been 2 years. "Besides, they are family. What else am I supposed to do? Let them get evicted." He gave me a long look but dropped the subject. In retrospect, I should have paid more attention to the worry in his eyes. Year 4 brought another promotion at work and a significant salary increase. I was now a senior accountant with a respectable income. Instead of finally prioritizing my own financial goals, I increased the family support to $2,500 monthly. By then, it had become automatic, expected. The thank you calls became thank you texts. Then just acknowledgement receipts. "Got it. Thanks." My social life suffered. Friends stopped inviting me to expensive restaurants or weekend getaways because I always declined. My colleague Jordan asked me out, but our brief relationship ended when I could not explain why I was always working overtime yet still seemed to struggle financially. I could not admit I was supporting my entire family. It felt both like bragging about being a good daughter and admitting I was being taken advantage of. By year 7, I had given my family well over $100,000. The weight of this responsibility had become so normal that I rarely questioned it anymore. I was 31 years old with a successful career on paper, but my bank account told a different story. This was my life now: work, save a little, send the rest to family, repeat. Little did I know that everything was about to change. The shift in my family's attitude was so gradual that I almost missed it. Almost. It started with the phone calls. Where Mom once called several times a week to check in, our conversations dwindled to brief exchanges once every couple of weeks. When I called them, there was always a reason why they could not talk long. Dad was always just heading out the door. Mom was not feeling well and needed to rest. Haley was studying for a big exam. Our Sunday family dinners became monthly, then quarterly events. Each time I suggested visiting, there was an excuse. The house was being painted. Mom was having a bad pain day. They had prior commitments. I chalked it up to everyone being busy with their own lives. Dad was still job hunting, Mom was managing her health, and Haley was focused on nursing school. It made sense that they had less time for casual family gatherings, until my 30th birthday. I had always made a big deal of everyone's birthdays. For Mom's 60th, I had flown in her sister from Arizona as a surprise. For Dad's birthday, I had gotten tickets to see his favorite baseball team. For Haley's 21st, I had planned an entire weekend celebration. So when my 30th birthday arrived, I expected at least a phone call, maybe a small gathering, perhaps a thoughtful card. I received nothing. No calls, no texts, no cards. The day passed with complete silence from my family. I checked my phone constantly, wondering if there was a technical issue. I even called my service provider to confirm my phone was working properly. It was working fine. My family had simply forgotten, or worse, they had remembered and decided not to acknowledge it. My friend Olivia brought a small cake to my apartment later. I blew out the candles alone after she left, making a wish that my family was just planning some belated surprise. They were not. A week passed, then 2, with no mention of my birthday, no belated wishes, nothing. When I finally brought it up during a brief call with Mom, her response was a hurried, "Oh honey, I am so sorry, things have been so hectic here. We will make it up to you next time you visit." But the invitation to visit never came. 3 months after my forgotten birthday, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw something that made my stomach drop. A photo of my parents and Haley smiling widely in front of Cinderella's castle at Disney World. The timestamp showed it was posted just 2 days earlier. I stared at the image, unable to process what I was seeing. My family, who I had been supporting financially because they could not afford rent, had somehow found the money for a Disney vacation. A vacation they had not mentioned to me once. With shaking hands, I called my mother. "Oh, Kristen," she sounded surprised to hear from me. "How are you, sweetheart?" "I am fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just saw some interesting photos on Facebook. When were you going to tell me about Disney World?" A long pause followed. It was a last-minute thing, she finally said. Haley has been working so hard in nursing school, and your father and I thought she deserved a break. It was just a quick weekend trip. A quick weekend trip to Florida from Oregon? I asked. That must have cost thousands of dollars. We found a good deal, Mom said quickly. And your Uncle Larry helped out a bit, too. That did not sound like Uncle Larry. He had always been careful with money and had expressed concerns about my family's dependence on my financial support. I see, I said, not believing her for a second. Well, I hope you all had fun. We did, honey. I am sorry we did not mention it. We did not want you to feel like you needed to contribute to this too. You already do so much for us. The conversation ended awkwardly with Mom promising to call me soon to catch up properly. That call never came. The following week, I met Olivia for coffee. After listening to me recount the Disney World discovery, she set down her cup with unusual firmness. Kristen, I have held my tongue for years because you always defend them, but this is ridiculous. Your family is taking advantage of you. They have been for years. That is not true, I protested weakly. They are going through hard times. For 7 years? Olivia raised an eyebrow. Nobody has hard times for 7 consecutive years without some serious mismanagement or deception involved. And now they are taking Disney vacations while you cannot even afford to join that pottery class you have been talking about for months, because you send them so much money. They would do the same for me if I needed it, I insisted. Would they though? Olivia challenged. Have they ever supported you through anything financially or otherwise? I opened my mouth to respond but found I had no examples to offer. Olivia softened her tone. I am saying this because I care about you. This is not normal or healthy. At some point, you need to consider the possibility that they are using you. I dismissed her concerns outwardly, but could not stop thinking about her words in the days that followed. Then came the mall incident. I rarely splurged on shopping, but I needed a new outfit for an important presentation at work. While browsing through a department store, I spotted a familiar figure at the luxury handbag counter. Haley, my sister, who was supposedly struggling to afford nursing textbooks, was purchasing a designer purse that I knew cost well over $1,000. I approached her, watching as she handed over a credit card to the sales associate with practiced ease. Haley. She spun around, her expression morphing from surprise to something like guilt. Kristen, what are you doing here? Shopping for work clothes, I said, eyeing the designer shopping bag now in her hand. That is a beautiful bag. Oh, this? She laughed nervously. It is just a knockoff, super cheap. I had worked as a retail associate during college. I knew the store did not sell counterfeits, and I recognized the distinct packaging of the luxury brand. Really? From the designer section. Haley's cheeks flushed. I have to run. I am meeting friends for lunch. I will call you later. Okay. She hurried away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with a growing sense of unease. Later that week, I drove past Haley's apartment complex and noticed a brand new car in her assigned parking spot. The temporary license plate indicated it had been purchased recently. The last time we spoke, she had complained about repair costs for her old sedan, hinting that she might need help with the mechanic's bill. The pieces were starting to form a disturbing picture, but I still could not quite accept what they were showing me. It was time to talk to the one person in my family who had always been straight with me. Uncle Larry agreed to meet me at our favorite diner the following Sunday. He was the only family member who consistently made time for me, calling regularly and meeting for lunch at least once a month. He arrived early, already nursing a cup of coffee when I slid into the booth across from him. You look troubled, kiddo, he said, studying my face. Everything okay at work? Work is fine, I replied, ordering coffee from the passing waitress. I wanted to talk to you about Mom, Dad, and Haley. Uncle Larry's expression changed subtly. He set down his mug and sighed. I was wondering when this conversation would happen. When what conversation would happen? The one where you finally realize what has been going on. My stomach tightened. And what exactly has been going on, Uncle Larry? He looked pained, running a hand through his graying hair. Your family has been taking advantage of your generosity, Kristen. For years now. Mom said you helped pay for their Disney trip, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Larry's eyebrows shot up. Disney? I did not pay for any Disney trip. I did not even know they went to Disney. That is what I thought, I murmured. Listen, Kristen, there is something you need to know. Your dad has been working again for 3 years now. The world seemed to stop. What? He got a job as a shift supervisor at Johnson Manufacturing. Better pay than his old warehouse position. Benefits, too. That is impossible, I said, though even as the words left my mouth I knew it was true. It explained so much. They would have told me. They would have stopped asking for money. Larry shook his head sadly. They do not see it as asking anymore. They see your money as their entitlement. I have tried talking to Thomas about it. Told him it was not right to keep taking from you when they are back on their feet. He got angry, said I did not understand the pressures of raising a family. And Mom's health issues? Her fibromyalgia is real, but it is managed well enough that she started working part-time at the church office 2 years ago. It is not much, but between that and your dad's job they are doing fine financially. Better than fine, actually. I thought about the Disney trip, Haley's designer purse, her new car. They are living well, are not they, on my money? Larry nodded grimly. Your parents renovated their kitchen last year. Granite countertops, new appliances, the works. Haley has been talking about a spring break trip to Cancun with her friends. Meanwhile, you are working yourself to exhaustion to fund their lifestyle. My coffee arrived, but I could not bring myself to drink it. My throat felt too tight. Why did not you tell me sooner? Larry looked genuinely remorseful. I tried in my way. Remember all those times I asked if you were sure you could afford to keep supporting them? But you always seemed so determined to help. And they are my family too. It put me in an impossible position. He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I am sorry, Kristen. I should have been more direct. It is not your fault, I said, though part of me wished he had told me earlier, before I had given away so much of my life. There is more, Larry continued reluctantly. Last month, when I was helping your dad with some yard work, I overheard your parents discussing whether they should ask you to increase your contribution to help with the timeshare they want to buy in Florida. A timeshare? Are you serious? I confronted them about it, told them it was shameful to even consider asking you for more, when they have not been honest about their situation. Your mother got defensive, said they deserved nice things after all they have been through. Your father accused me of being jealous of their financial planning. That is what he called it, Kristen. Financial planning. I felt physically ill. 7 years of sacrifices, of putting my life on hold, reduced to financial planning for my parents' luxury purchases. Do they ever talk about paying me back? I asked, already knowing the answer. Larry shook his head. I have never heard them mention it. I think in their minds this is just what daughters do for their parents. They have convinced themselves they are entitled to your support. I spent the next hour asking questions with Larry, filling in the gaps of my family's deception. How they had started small with genuine need, but continued the charade long after necessity had passed. How they justified it by occasionally buying me small gifts for Christmas or my birthday, as if a $50 sweater made up for thousands in monthly support. How they had begun to resent my questions about their job searches or budget, seeing it as an intrusion rather than reasonable concern. By the time we finished our lunch, untouched on my part, I had a clearer picture of my family's betrayal than I had ever wanted. What are you going to do? Larry asked as we stood in the parking lot. I do not know yet, I admitted. But something has to change. This cannot continue. He hugged me tightly. Whatever you decide, I am on your side. Remember that. I drove home in a daze, 7 years of memories replaying in my mind with new context. The grateful tears that seemed so genuine. The emergencies that always aligned with vacation seasons or major sales. The increasing distance whenever I asked specific questions about their finances. I had been played by the people I trusted most in the world. And I had never seen it coming. I sat on my living room floor, surrounded by bank statements, calculating exactly how much money I had given my family over the years. The final figure made me physically ill. $123,740. Money that could have bought me a house, funded a comfortable retirement, or allowed me to travel the world. I cried until there were no tears left, then sat in numb silence, watching the sunrise through my apartment window. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This was not just about money. It was about trust, respect, and love. My family had demonstrated none of these toward me. By morning, I knew I needed professional help to process this revelation. I called in sick to work for the first time in years and scheduled an emergency appointment with a therapist I had seen briefly after a difficult breakup. Dr. Patricia Wilson remembered me and made time in her schedule that afternoon. In her calm, sunlit office, I poured out the whole story, from the first desperate call for rent money to Uncle Larry's revelations. "What you are describing is financial abuse," Dr. Wilson said gently when I finished. "It is particularly painful because it came from family, the people we expect to protect us, not exploit us." "I feel so stupid," I whispered. "How did I not see it?" "Because you were operating from love and trust, which is natural with family. They took advantage of your good heart, not your intelligence." She leaned forward. "The question now is, what boundaries do you need to set going forward?" Boundaries. The word felt foreign when applied to family. I had never considered that I needed protection from the people who raised me. "I cannot keep giving them money," I said, the decision crystallizing as I spoke. "Not when they have been lying to me." "That seems like a reasonable boundary," Dr. Wilson agreed. "But I sense you are concerned about how to communicate this." I nodded. "They depend on my money. Or at least they have built their lifestyle around it. If I cut them off completely without warning." "You are worried about the fallout," she finished for me. "That is understandable. Perhaps a transitional approach would feel more comfortable for you." We spent the rest of the session discussing options. By the time I left, I had a plan. I would draft an email explaining that I knew about their improved financial situation and would be gradually reducing my support over 6 months, ending it completely after that period. This would give them time to adjust their spending or increase their own income. It felt fair, even generous, considering their deception. At home, I spent hours crafting the email. I wanted to be clear without being accusatory, firm without being cruel. I explained that I had learned about my father's employment, my mother's part-time work, and their improved financial circumstances. I detailed how supporting them had impacted my own financial health and future security. I proposed the 6-month transition period with monthly reductions in support, and suggested we meet to discuss a plan for them to eventually repay at least a portion of what I had given them over the years. Before sending it, I forwarded the draft to Uncle Larry, asking for his input. He called me immediately after reading it. "It is more generous than they deserve," he said frankly. "But it reflects who you are, Kristen. Compassionate even when hurt. I think this is a good approach. Will you help them adjust if they struggle with the transition?" I asked. "Of course," he promised. "I will do whatever I can to support them through this change, and to support you in setting these necessary boundaries." His reassurance gave me the courage I needed. I took a deep breath and pressed send, then turned off my phone, unable to face their immediate reaction. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter despite the uncertainty ahead. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to think about my own dreams, independent of my family's needs. I looked at real estate listings for small starter homes. I priced out a 2-week trip to Italy. I calculated how quickly I could pay off my remaining student loans if I redirected the family support money to debt reduction. The possibilities were both thrilling and terrifying. I had defined myself as the family provider for so long that I was not sure who I was without that role. I finally turned my phone back on around noon, steeling myself for missed calls, texts, or angry emails. To my surprise, there was nothing. No acknowledgement of my email, no defensive justifications, no apologies, just silence. The silence continued through the afternoon and into the evening. I checked my email repeatedly to confirm it had sent properly. I even called Uncle Larry to ask if he had heard from them. "Nothing," he said, sounding concerned. "That is unusual. I will drop by their house tomorrow if you have not heard anything." I agreed, though an unsettling feeling had begun to take root. This silent treatment did not bode well. The next day passed with the same eerie silence. No contact from any family member, not even Haley, who typically responded to texts within minutes. By evening, Anxiety had me pacing my apartment, imagining scenarios from medical emergencies to collective family sulking. Then Uncle Larry called. I went by the house, he said, his voice tight with anger. They are fine, Kristen. More than fine. They were having a family meeting about your email when I arrived unannounced. A family meeting without me? About me? Yes. Thomas, Elaine, and Haley were sitting around the dining table with printouts of your email, discussing how to respond. They did not look upset or worried. They looked calculating. My stomach dropped. What did they say when they saw you? They tried to get me to join their side. Elaine suggested they should take a break from you until you come to your senses about the money. Thomas talked about how ungrateful you were after all they had done for you. Haley was worried about having to drop out of school without your support, despite the fact that she just bought that new car. Each word felt like a physical blow. They were not even considering my proposal. They were strategizing how to manipulate you into continuing the payments. When I told them they should be ashamed of themselves, that you had every right to stop supporting grown adults who had lied to you for years, they got angry. Really angry. His voice cracked slightly. I packed up some of my things and left. I cannot stay in that house, knowing how they are treating you. Uncle Larry had been living with my parents since his divorce 5 years earlier, helping with household maintenance in exchange for reduced rent. The fact that he was willing to leave over this spoke volumes. Where will you go? I asked, concerned for him now. I have a buddy with a spare room. I will be fine. I am more worried about you and what they might do next. We did not have to wait long to find out. The group text arrived at 9:37 that night, just as I was getting ready for bed. It was from my mother's number, but the message was clearly crafted by committee. After discussing your email as a family, we have decided we need space from you. Your accusations and ultimatums have deeply hurt us after all we have done for you. Please do not reach out anymore at all. We will contact you when we are ready to move forward. I stared at the phone, reading and rereading the cold dismissal. No acknowledgement of their deception. No gratitude for 7 years of financial support. No recognition of the sacrifices I had made. Just a command to disappear until they decided I was worthy of their attention again. The injustice of it burned through my shock. They had taken over $100,000 from me under false pretenses, and now they were acting as if I had wronged them by discovering their lies. My hand shook as I checked social media, only to discover they had already blocked me on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn, a clean digital excision from their lives. I called Uncle Larry, who answered on the first ring. They sent a group text, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. They want space from me. They have blocked me on all social media. Those ungrateful, manipulative. He did not finish the sentence, taking a deep breath instead. I am so sorry, Kristen. I knew they might react poorly, but this is beyond what I expected. This is who they have become, and it has nothing to do with you. You deserve so much better. What do I do now? I asked, feeling unmoored. Now you live your life, Larry said firmly. Their reaction just confirmed everything we suspected. They only valued you for what you could give them. That is their shame, not yours. After we hung up, I sat motionless on my couch, trying to process the finality of the text message. My family had chosen money over a relationship. They had cut me off for having the audacity to stop financing their lifestyle. The people who should have loved me unconditionally had placed a very specific condition on their love: continued financial support. A strange calm settled over me as the reality sank in. In their attempt to punish me, they had actually clarified exactly where I stood with them. There was no more ambiguity, no more benefit of the doubt to extend. They had shown me who they truly were. With that clarity came determination. I picked up my phone and typed a brief response to the group text. Of course. I will cancel my direct deposits first thing tomorrow. Then I called my bank's 24-hour customer service line. The representative was helpful and efficient, canceling all automatic transfers to my family members' accounts. She asked if I wanted to block future transfers to those account numbers. And after a moment's hesitation, I said, yes. Is there anything else I can help you with tonight? She asked cheerfully. No, that is everything. Thank you. As I spoke the words, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. 7 years of financial obligation ended with a single phone call. I slept surprisingly well that night, as if a weight had been physically lifted from my body. In the morning, I transferred the money that would have gone to my family into my own savings account, marveling at how it instantly increased my financial security. At work, I focused on my projects with renewed energy. My colleague Jordan noticed the difference, commenting that I seemed lighter somehow. I simply smiled and said I had resolved a long-standing personal issue. That evening, I allowed myself to browse real estate listings more seriously, contacting an agent about viewing a modestly priced condo in a neighborhood I had long admired. For the first time, home ownership seemed like a realistic possibility, rather than a distant dream. Just before midnight, my phone exploded with notifications. First came the missed calls. 6 from my mother, 4 from my father, 3 from Haley. Then the voicemails, each more urgent than the last. Kristen, call me back immediately. There has been a misunderstanding. My mother's voice, tense and controlled. Honey, we need to talk. This has gone too far. My father, trying to sound reasonable. What did you do? Mom and Dad are freaking out. Haley, accusatory and panicked. Then came the text messages. Mom, the bank says the transfer failed. Call me ASAP. Dad, there must be an error with the automatic payment. We have bills due tomorrow. Haley, this is not funny, Kristen. Mom is crying. I turned off notifications and placed my phone face down on the nightstand. Their emergency was not my emergency anymore. Tomorrow would be soon enough to deal with the fallout. Uncle Larry called early the next morning. Your parents have been blowing up my phone, he said without preamble. Apparently, they tried to make a large purchase this morning, and their card was declined. They are scrambling to figure out why your money did not come through. Did you tell them why? I asked. I told them they should read your reply to their text message more carefully. Elaine actually said, and I quote, she would never actually stop the payments. She knows we need that money. The delusion is strong with them. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of guilt. Maybe I should have given them more warning before stopping the payments completely. Kristen, Larry's voice was gentle but firm. They told you not to contact them anymore. They blocked you on social media. They rejected your very generous 6-month transition plan. What exactly were you supposed to do? He was right, of course. I had tried to be fair. They had chosen this abrupt ending, not me. Throughout the day, the calls and messages continued. By evening, the tone had shifted from confusion to anger to desperate negotiation. We can work this out, honey. Just turn the payments back on while we talk things through, read a text from my father. I do not understand why you are punishing us like this. We are your family, wrote my mother. I might have to drop out of nursing school. Is that what you want? Haley's message, a transparent attempt at guilt manipulation. I did not respond to any of them. Uncle Larry kept me updated on their reactions, reporting that they were now blaming him for poisoning me against them, and had asked him to move out completely. I will be gone by the weekend, he told me. My buddy Jack is letting me stay with him until I find my own place. I am so sorry you are caught in the middle of this, I said. Do not apologize. This has been a long time coming. I am just sorry I did not speak up sooner. 3 days after I canceled the direct deposits, I arrived home from work to find Haley sitting on the floor outside my apartment door, a gift bag beside her. She jumped up when she saw me. Finally. I have been waiting for hours, she said as if I was late for an appointment I never made. What are you doing here, Haley? I asked, keeping my voice neutral as I unlocked my door. We need to talk, she said, following me inside without waiting for an invitation. This whole situation has gotten out of hand. Mom and Dad are a mess. You are not answering our calls or texts. I set down my work bag and turned to face her. You all asked for space. I am respecting that request. That was just Mom being dramatic. You know how she gets. We did not mean for you to cut us off financially. She thrust the gift bag toward me. Here, I brought you something. Inside was an expensive scented candle, the same brand I had once mentioned liking but never bought for myself because of the cost. The irony was not lost on me. Thank you for the candle, I said, setting it aside. But it does not change anything, Haley. I know about Dad's job. I know about Mom's part-time work at the church. I know about your designer purse and new car. I know you have all been lying to me for years. Her expression shifted from false cheerfulness to defensive anger. So what? Parents are supposed to help their children, and children are supposed to help their parents. That is how family works. Help, yes. But this was not help, Haley. This was exploitation. You all took advantage of my love and trust. You lied to me repeatedly to keep the money flowing. That is not family. That is fraud. That is such an ugly word, she said, flinching. We never forced you to give us money. You offered. I offered based on information you knew was false. You let me believe Dad was unemployed for years. You let me believe you were in constant financial crisis. Meanwhile, you were taking vacations and buying luxury items with my hard-earned money. Haley's eyes filled with tears, but I had seen this performance before. What do you want from us? An apology? Fine, I am sorry. We all are. Can we move past this now? An apology would be a start, I said. But not if it is just a tactic to get the money flowing again. I need to see real change, real honesty, and a real plan to pay back at least some of what you have taken under false pretenses. Her expression hardened. So that is it. You are holding your own family financially hostage until we meet your demands. The accusation was so backward, so completely inverted from reality that I almost laughed. No, Haley. I am simply stopping a financial arrangement that was based on lies. What happens next is up to all of you. You will regret this, she said, grabbing her purse. When you need us someday, remember this moment. After she left, I sat in my quiet apartment, thinking about her parting threat. The truth was I had needed my family for years, needed their emotional support, their genuine interest in my life, their love without conditions. They had failed to provide any of that, focused only on what I could give them materially. For the first time, I truly understood that I had been alone all along. The next 2 weeks were a blur of emotional and practical upheaval. My family cycled through every manipulation tactic imaginable, from guilt trips to anger to love bombing. My mother sent a lengthy email explaining that there had been a terrible misunderstanding. According to her revisionist history, they had never explicitly said Dad was unemployed in recent years. I had simply assumed it. They had not mentioned his job or Mom's part-time work, because they did not want to burden me with the details of their daily struggles. The Disney trip had been won in a church raffle, a claim I knew was false. Haley's designer purchases were all bargain finds at outlet stores. Every explanation was paper-thin, easily disproven, and completely ignored the central issue. They had deliberately fostered the impression of financial desperation to keep me sending money. My father took a different approach, leaving voicemails filled with apologies for any miscommunication, and blaming the situation on stressful times and poor financial planning. He never acknowledged the deliberate deception, instead characterizing the whole situation as a series of unfortunate misunderstandings that could be resolved if only I would resume the financial support while we worked things out as a family. Haley alternated between angry texts accusing me of betrayal and tearful messages about potentially having to leave nursing school. When I did not respond, she showed up at my workplace with flowers, creating an uncomfortable scene in the reception area that ended with my manager asking her to leave. Through it all, I maintained my silence, following the advice of Dr. Wilson to give myself space to process my feelings before engaging with them again. I focused instead on rebuilding my life. I met with a financial advisor who helped me create a plan to maximize my newly available funds. I put a deposit down on a modest but charming condo in a neighborhood I loved. I booked a 2-week trip to Italy for the following spring, something I had dreamed of since college. I joined the pottery class Olivia had been recommending for months. Uncle Larry, now settled in his friend's spare room, became my most consistent support. We met for dinner twice a week, comparing notes on our respective journeys away from the toxic family dynamic we had both enabled in different ways. Your parents called me yesterday, he told me during one of our dinners. They want to arrange a family meeting to clear the air. I think they are finally realizing you are serious about this. What did you tell them? I asked. I said I would participate only if they came prepared to take full responsibility for their actions, and with a concrete plan to make amends. Thomas hung up on me. I smiled despite the situation. They are not used to both of us having boundaries. No, they are not, Larry agreed. But they will have to adapt if they want either of us back in their lives. 3 weeks after the initial group text, my mother called, and surprisingly I answered. "We want to meet with you," she said without preamble. "All of us, including Larry if he will come. Neutral location, your choice." "Why?" I asked simply. "Because we are family, Kristen. Families should not be torn apart by misunderstandings about money." It was still framed as a misunderstanding, not a deliberate deception, but it was the closest thing to an olive branch they had offered. "I will think about it," I said, unwilling to commit immediately. After consulting with Dr. Wilson, I agreed to the meeting with specific conditions. It would be in a public restaurant of my choosing. Uncle Larry would be present, and I would leave immediately if they became manipulative or refused to acknowledge the facts of the situation. We met the following Saturday at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. My parents and Haley arrived together, all dressed more formally than the occasion required, as if attending a business negotiation. Uncle Larry and I arrived separately, exchanging a supportive glance before sitting down at the large corner table. An uncomfortable silence fell as the waiter distributed menus and took drink orders. No one seemed willing to be the first to speak. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Kristen, first of all, we want to apologize for how things have unfolded. This situation has gotten out of hand, and we regret the group text message. It was written in the heat of the moment. It was a start, but nowhere near the full acknowledgement I needed." "What exactly are you apologizing for, Dad? The text message? Or the years of deception about your financial situation?" He shifted uncomfortably. "We never meant to deceive you. We simply did not want to worry you with the ups and downs of our financial recovery." "Recovery from what?" I pressed. "You have had steady employment for 3 years. According to Uncle Larry, Mom has been working part-time for 2 years. Yet, you continued to accept thousands of dollars from me monthly without ever suggesting the amount could be reduced because your situation had improved." My mother jumped in. "We should have been more transparent about our improving circumstances. That was wrong of us, and we are truly sorry." It was the first genuine acknowledgement, and I nodded slightly in recognition. "We got comfortable with the arrangement," she continued. "The extra money helped us rebuild our savings after the difficult years, take care of home repairs we have been postponing, help Haley with school." Her voice trailed off as she realized she was describing discretionary spending, not survival needs. "In Disney World," I added. "And Haley's designer purse and her new car, and the timeshare you were considering in Florida." My parents exchanged glances. "Who told you about the timeshare?" my father asked, shooting an accusatory look at Uncle Larry. "Does it matter?" I countered. "The point is, you were using my money for luxuries while I postponed my own goals and dreams because I thought you were in dire financial straits." Haley, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "I did not know about Dad's job until last year," she said. "Mom and Dad told me not to mention it to you because it would complicate things. I should have said something anyway. I am sorry, Kristen." Her apology seemed sincere, and I felt a small crack in my protective armor. "Thank you for that, Haley." My father, perhaps sensing a shift in the emotional temperature, leaned forward eagerly. "So where do we go from here? We want to move past this, Kristen. We want our family back together." "That depends," I said carefully. "Are you asking for our relationship to be restored? Or are you asking for the money to start flowing again?" "Both, obviously," my mother said, then quickly backtracked at my expression. "I mean primarily the relationship, of course, but we have built our budget around your contribution, and cutting it off so abruptly has created real hardship." Uncle Larry, who had been silently observing, made a sound that was somewhere between a cough and a derisive laugh. "Elaine, do you hear yourself?" he asked. "You are still framing this as Kristen's responsibility. You are not entitled to her money. You never were. The fact that you built your budget around an income source you obtained through deception is your problem to solve, not hers." My father's face reddened. "Easy for you to say, Larry. You have always had the luxury of only worrying about yourself." "That is enough," I said firmly. "Uncle Larry is here as my support person, not to be attacked. If you cannot have this conversation respectfully, then we are done here. My parents exchanged glances again, and my mother reached for my hand across the table. I allowed the contact, though it felt strange after weeks of emotional distance. "We want to make this right," she said softly. "Tell us what you need from us." It was the question I had been waiting for, the one I had prepared for with Dr. Wilson's help. "I need complete honesty from this point forward," I began. "No more secrets, no more convenient omissions, no more manipulation. I need acknowledgement of the full extent of the deception over the past years, not just vague apologies for miscommunication. I need you to take responsibility for your own financial situation, without expecting me to subsidize your lifestyle." I took a deep breath before continuing. "And I need some form of repayment plan for at least a portion of the money that was taken under false pretenses. Not all of it, but enough to demonstrate that you understand the magnitude of what happened and are committed to making amends." My father started to object, but my mother squeezed his arm in warning. "Those terms are fair," she said, though the words seemed difficult for her. "We can work out a repayment plan, something manageable with our current income." "And what about our relationship going forward?" my father asked. "Will you be part of the family again?" It was the question that had troubled me most in the weeks of separation. What did family mean now, after everything that had happened? "We can begin rebuilding our relationship," I said carefully. "Slowly, with appropriate boundaries. No more financial entanglement, no more guilt trips, no more manipulation. We start with occasional brief contacts and see how it goes." It was not the immediate, complete reconciliation they had hoped for, but it was all I could honestly offer. To my surprise, they accepted these terms without further argument, perhaps finally understanding how close they had come to losing me permanently. As we finished our meals and prepared to leave, Haley asked hesitantly, "Can I hug you goodbye?" I nodded, and her embrace was tight, desperate, reminiscent of the sister I had known before money complicated everything. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope that something genuine might be salvaged from the wreckage of our family relationships. Only time would tell. The months that followed were a careful dance of rebuilding trust, while maintaining firm boundaries. My parents struggled with the new dynamic, at first occasionally slipping into old patterns of subtle guilt trips or references to financial struggles. Each time I calmly pointed out what they were doing and redirected the conversation, or ended it if necessary. The healing process was not quick or easy, but slowly, miraculously, things began to change for the better. The token monthly repayments they started making were a symbol of their commitment. I moved into my condo, and for the first time it felt like a home, not just a place to sleep between work shifts. My trip to Italy was everything I dreamed it would be. A turning point where I reconnected with the woman I was before I became the family bank. I came back feeling lighter, freer, and more myself than I had in years. I even went on another date with Jordan from work, and this time it felt right. A year to the day after receiving that cold text message, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner in my new home. My parents, Haley, and Uncle Larry were all there. The tension was gone, replaced by a cautious but genuine warmth. My dad spent an hour helping me fix a wobbly table, offering his time instead of asking for my money. Haley, now a registered nurse, proudly told stories from the hospital and insisted on bringing the most elaborate dessert. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside. "This place is beautiful, Kristen," she said, her eyes misty. "You built this. I am so sorry we ever made you feel like you couldn't have a life of your own. It was the apology I never knew I needed. Today our family is not perfect, but it is real. It is built on honesty and respect, not obligation and deceit." The text that once shattered my heart ended up being the catalyst that saved us all. It forced us to break down a toxic dynamic and rebuild something healthier and more honest in its place. I learned that true generosity isn't about sacrificing yourself, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. If my story resonated with you, and you believe in the power of setting boundaries and fighting for healthier relationships, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about personal growth and navigating the beautiful complexities of family. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with people you love? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might just empower someone else. Thank you for listening.